Every seasoned gardener understands this timeless truth. A garden is only as strong as the soil beneath it. Rich, living soil, packed with nutrients, fungi, and beneficial microbes, creates plants that flourish with little effort. But tired soil, compacted and drained of life, is like an empty pantry. No matter how much water or store-bought fertilizer you pour on, the results are disappointing. For generations, we've leaned on composting as the ultimate fix, the so-called black gold of gardening. And yes, compost has its place. But what if I told you there's a method that not only works faster, but also keeps far more nutrients locked in? Nutrients your plants can actually use. It's a method rooted in old farming wisdom, yet backed by modern science. It's called fermentation, or bokashi, and it may just be the biggest leap forward in home gardening since composting itself. Today we'll uncover why fermentation could transform your soil, your plants, and your harvests, far beyond what composting alone can do. Composting, the old standard and its struggles. Now let's start with the method most gardeners know best, composting. For decades, it's been celebrated as the gold standard for recycling organic matter. By using oxygen and heat, composting breaks down kitchen scraps and yard waste into a rich, dark material that can suppress some pathogens, return nutrients to the soil, and improve overall structure. On paper, it sounds like the perfect solution. But here's the reality. First, composting takes time, a lot of time. Depending on your setup and climate, it can take 6 months to a year before you have a fully mature product. For busy gardeners or those with limited space, that long wait can feel discouraging. Second, unless you turn the pile regularly, oxygen levels drop. When that happens, scraps become slimy, piles start to smell, and worse, they attract pests, from flies to rodents. And third, perhaps the most frustrating part, composting causes nutrient loss. The very heat that helps break down waste also drives nitrogen into the air as ammonia gas. That sharp smell you notice around a hot compost pile, that's your nitrogen. Your most process is fast. Instead of waiting half a year, fermentation typically finishes in just 3 to 6 weeks. Third, the acidic environment works in your favor. It naturally deters pests, suppresses harmful pathogens, and even destroys weed seeds. So what goes in as waste comes out as a safe, nutrient-rich amendment. And here's something many gardeners are surprised to discover. The final product doesn't smell foul. In fact, it carries a pleasant, slightly sweet and sour aroma, more like sourdough starter or pickles than rotting trash. Think of it this way. Instead of letting your scraps rot, you're actually pickling them for your soil. And here's a hidden gem. Those organic acids don't just preserve nutrients, they chelate minerals. In simple terms, that means they lock nutrients into a form that plant roots can absorb more easily. So you're not just keeping nutrients, you're delivering them in a way plants absolutely love. 3, science-backed advantages you probably haven't heard. Now let's dig into what the science actually tells us, because this is mere fermentation really pulls ahead. Recent studies show that bokashi fermented material holds about 3.5% nitrogen, nearly 3 times higher than the average compost pile, which hovers around just 1.1%. And it doesn't stop there. Fermentation also delivers more potassium, calcium, magnesium, and iron, all minerals your plants desperately need for strong growth and fruiting. Next, consider the climate impact. Traditional compost heaps can release significant amounts of greenhouse gases. In fact, research shows that fermentation produces up to 16 times less emissions. Even better, It helps lock more carbon into the soil, which means you're not only feeding your garden, but also practicing climate-smart gardening. But here's another advantage most gardeners don't realize. Fermentation is incredibly versatile. Meat scraps, dairy products, citrus peels, even oily leftovers, all of which can ruin a compost pile, are no problem for fermentation. The microbes break them down safely without creating foul odors or inviting rodents. And finally, let's not overlook convenience. Fermentation happens in a sealed container, so there are no clouds of fruit flies, no raccoons digging through your bins, and no embarrassing smells drifting into your neighbor's yard. That makes it perfect for people living in small homes, townhouses, or even apartments. Seniors especially appreciate this because it's a system that's low effort, tidy, and truly manageable at any stage. Water. This creates a one-way valve that keeps the system anaerobic. Next, let's look at the ingredients. A good ratio is about 60% fresh clippings or kitchen scraps and 40% water by volume. For every gallon of this mixture, add 2 tablespoons of molasses to feed the microbes, plus 1/4 cup of rice rinse water to introduce natural beneficial organisms. Now let's consider the conditions. Fermentation works best between 70 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. If it gets too hot, you risk killing the microbes. If it's too cold, the process slows down, but the upside is that it often creates even more microbial diversity. And finally, the time frame. Within 3 to 6 weeks, you'll notice the bubbling slows, the contents turn a golden brown, and the pH drops to around 3.5 to 4. At this stage, your fermentation is stable, safe, and ready to use in the garden. Simple, affordable, and surprisingly effective, fermentation puts nutrient recycling within reach of every gardener. 5 practical applications. Multiple ways to use it, so what can you actually do with your finished fermentation? The answer is quite a lot. Once your bucket is ready, you essentially have 3 powerful tools at your disposal. First, use it as a soil amendment. Simply mix about 1 inch of fermented material per square foot into your garden beds. In heavy clay soil, it helps break up compaction, while in sandy soil, it dramatically improves water retention. Second, try it as a top dressing. Spread the material around the base of your plants, leaving a few inches of space from the stems. This creates a slow-release nutrient blanket that keeps feeding your crops for weeks. And third, don't overlook the liquid fertilizer. Strain off the liquid from your bucket. Dilute it at a ratio of 1 part fermented liquid to 10 parts water, or 1 to 20 for more delicate plants. Then apply it as a soil drench or even a foliar spray during cooler hours. Gardeners call this Bokashi tea, and it's a microbe-rich, nutrient-packed tonic that your plants can absorb almost instantly. In short, 1 process, 3 different products, and all of them strengthen your soil while nourishing your plants. 6. Even garden enemies can become allies. Weeds pulled from your beds, yes, even with seeds, are neutralized by the acidic process, so you can recycle them safely. And here's a little-known homesteader trick. Shred paper or cardboard, mix it with nitrogen-rich clippings, and ferment it. What was once waste transforms into organic matter your soil craves. With fermentation, almost anything organic becomes a potential recipe, turning everyday scraps into powerful soil medicine. Long-term benefits, building a living soil. Here's the real beauty of fermentation. It's magic. It doesn't stop when you spread it on your garden. The microbes continue working underground, silently transforming your soil into a living, breathing ecosystem. First, these beneficial organisms form symbiotic bonds with plant roots, almost like trusted partners. They help plants absorb more nutrients, pull in extra water during dry spells, and even stimulate root growth. Second, fermentation microbes act like natural bodyguards by outcompeting harmful pathogens. They reduce the risk of soil-borne diseases, giving your plants a stronger immune system without chemicals. Third, fermentation builds soil organic matter faster than compost. This means your soil structure improves, becoming more crumbly, better at holding water, and less prone to erosion. Gardeners notice healthier beds, fewer weeds, and crops that bounce back faster after stress. And over time, something amazing happens. Your soil becomes self-sustaining. It requires fewer fertilizers, fewer outside inputs, and less constant care. For seniors especially, this translates into less bending, less heavy lifting, and gardens that almost seem to run themselves. So with each batch of fermented matter you add, you're not just feeding plants for the season. You're building a legacy of living soil that will keep rewarding you year after year. 8 little-known tips from experienced gardeners. Now let's dive into a few insider secrets, tips I've learned over the years that most guides never mention but can make a huge difference in your results. First, consider winter fermentation buckets left in colder weather take longer to finish, sometimes double the usual time. But here's the hidden benefit. The slower pace encourages a more diverse microbial community, which often spreading fermented matter around fruit trees provides a slow, steady nutrient release. Gardeners often report stronger blossoms, more consistent fruit set, and trees that look noticeably healthier season after season. These small adjustments might sound simple, but they're the kind of fine-tuning that separates good results from truly exceptional ones. 9. Why this matters for seniors. For older gardeners, the smartest methods are always the ones that save energy, reduce heavy lifting, and deliver results you can actually see. And fermentation checks every single box. There's no need to turn heavy piles, no hauling big bins across the yard, and no pest headaches to deal with. All it takes is a simple bucket, a few scraps, and a little time. But fermentation isn't just practical, it's also deeply meaningful. It reconnects us with traditions that go back generations. Japanese farmers have used bokashi for centuries. Indigenous communities practiced soil fermentation long before the word sustainability existed. Even early American homesteaders knew how to preserve nutrients in the soil without chemicals by fermenting. Today, we're continuing that wisdom and becoming part of a regenerative movement, one where we give back to the soil more than we take. And that's what makes it so special. For seniors, it's not only about growing healthier plants, it's about gardening with purpose, with less strain and with a sense of continuity that links us to gardeners who came before. Conclusion: a new way forward. So, fermentation or composting both have value. But if you're looking for real nutrients preserved instead of lost, faster turnaround and healthier soil ecosystems, fermentation clearly comes out on top. With nothing more than a bucket, a spoonful of molasses, and the scraps you already have, you can create a soil amendment that outperforms most fertilizers without the chemicals or the cost. Try it once and you'll notice the difference, not just in your plant's growth, but in how alive your soil feels. If this video inspired you, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more senior-friendly gardening wisdom. And let us know in the comments, have you tried fermenting your scraps before, or are you still composting the traditional way? I truly love to hear your story.